Welcome to War Bios, the podcast that delves into the complexities of conflict and the art of warfare. I'm your host, General Biography, and today we're going to explore one of the most pivotal battles in medieval history, the Battle of Constantinople in 1204. This siege, which lasted for over a year, was a turning point in the Fourth Crusade and had far-reaching consequences for the Byzantine Empire, the Catholic Church, and the balance of power in Europe. This ancient metropolis, founded by Constantine the Great in 3030 AD, was a marvel of engineering, with its triple walls, imposing fortifications, and stunning architecture. The year was 1202, and the Fourth Crusade, initiated by Pope Innocent III in 1198, had been gathering momentum. The Crusaders saw an opportunity to not only reclaim the Holy Land, but also to gain riches and prestige in the process. The Byzantine Empire, under the rule of Emperor Alexios III Angelos, was facing internal strife and external pressures. The empire's relationships with its neighbors, including the Hungarians, Bulgars, and Seljuk Turks, were strained, and the capital city was a hotbed of intrigue and power struggles. In 1201, a group of crusaders, led by Boniface of Montferrat, had arrived in Venice, seeking transportation to the Holy Land. The Venetians, under the leadership of Enrico Dandolo, saw an opportunity to further their own city-state's interests and negotiated a deal with the Crusaders. Dandolo, who had been blinded in a conflict with the Byzantines, harbored a deep-seated resentment towards the empire and sought to expand Venice's influence in the region. He offered the Crusaders transportation and supplies in exchange for a share of the spoils and a commitment to help him settle old scores with the Byzantines. In 1203, Alexios IV Angelos, the son of the deposed Byzantine Emperor Isaac II, approached the Crusaders with a proposal. In exchange for their help in restoring him to the throne, he would provide them with vast riches and military support for their campaign against the Muslims. The Crusaders, led by Boniface of Montferrat, were swayed by Alexios's promises, and the fate of Constantinople began to take shape. However, the Crusaders were determined to breach them, driven by a mix of religious fervor, economic interests, and a desire for glory. The Byzantines, on the other hand, were confident in their ability to withstand the siege, but they underestimated the determination and cunning of their enemies. The question is, how would the Byzantines respond to the gathering storm, and what would be the ultimate cost of this clash of civilizations? The Crusaders, driven by a mix of religious fervor and economic interests, had set their sights on the Byzantine capital, determined to breach its formidable defenses. The city's triple walls, imposing fortifications, and stunning architecture made it a marvel of engineering, but also a formidable obstacle for the besieging forces. As the siege began, the Crusaders employed innovative tactics, including the use of catapults, ballistae, and other siege engines to weaken the city's defenses. The Byzantines, confident in their ability to withstand the siege, responded with a mix of traditional defensive measures, such as pouring hot oil and pitch on the attackers, and more unconventional methods, like using Greek fire to devastating effect. One of the most significant events of the siege was the Crusaders' successful navigation of the Golden Horn, a natural harbor that protected the city's northern flank. The Venetians, with their expertise in naval warfare, played a crucial role in this maneuver, using their ships to transport troops and supplies to the besieging forces. This bold move allowed the Crusaders to attack the city from multiple angles, putting immense pressure on the Byzantine defenses. The siege was marked by numerous acts of bravery and cunning, as both sides engaged in a war of attrition. The Crusaders, led by Boniface of Montferrat, launched repeated assaults on the city walls, while the Byzantines, under the leadership of Emperor Alexios III Angelos, fought valiantly to repel the invaders. As the siege wore on, the city's defenses began to weaken, and the Crusaders sensed victory within their grasp. In the words of the Byzantine historian Nicetas Choniatis, the city was beset on all sides by the enemy, and its inhabitants were filled with fear and despair. This sentiment captures the mood of the city as the siege reached its climax. The Crusaders' determination and strategic decisions had brought them to the brink of victory, but at what cost? The city's population was decimated, its treasures plundered, and its cultural heritage forever changed. The Byzantine Empire, once a beacon of learning and civilization, was left reeling from the blow. The question is, What would be the ultimate cost of this clash of civilizations, and how would the world be forever changed by the events of 1204? The siege, which lasted for several months, had left the city devastated, its population decimated, and its cultural heritage forever changed. The Byzantine Empire, once a beacon of learning and civilization, was left reeling from the blow. As the Crusaders, led by Boniface of Montferrat, claimed victory, they began to divide the spoils of war among themselves. The city's treasures, including gold, silver, and precious gems, were plundered, and many of its inhabitants were sold into slavery. The Latin Empire, established by the Crusaders, would go on to rule Constantinople for over 50 years, leaving a lasting legacy on the city's architecture, culture, and politics. One of the most significant consequences of the Battle of Constantinople was the destruction of the city's famous Library of Constantinople, which housed a vast collection of ancient manuscripts and texts. The library, which had been a center of learning and scholarship for centuries, was burned to the ground, resulting in the loss of countless irreplaceable works of literature and knowledge. The siege also had a profound impact on the Byzantine Empire's economy and trade. The city's strategic location, which had once made it a hub of commerce and trade, was now compromised, and the empire's merchants and traders were forced to seek new routes and markets. The loss of Constantinople's wealth and influence would have far-reaching consequences for the empire, contributing to its eventual decline and fall. In the years following the siege, the Byzantine Empire attempted to rebuild and recover from the devastating blow. However, the damage had been done, and the empire would never fully regain its former glory. The legacy of the Battle of Constantinople would continue to shape the course of history, influencing the development of Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean world for centuries to come. As the historian Stephen Runciman once wrote, "The sack of Constantinople was a crime against humanity, and it was also a crime against civilization." This sentiment captures the gravity of the consequences of the Battle of Constantinople, which would go on to shape the course of history in profound and lasting ways. The battle may have been fought over 800 years ago, but its impact continues to be felt, reminding us of the enduring power of human conflict and the devastating consequences of war. In conclusion, the decline and aftermath of the Battle of Constantinople marked a significant turning point in world history, shaping the course of politics, culture, and trade for centuries to come. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.